Hi there, everybody. I'm meteorologist Greg D. It's Saturday, November 2nd, coming up on 4 p.m. on this Saturday. Here in my office, Cookie and I just took a little nap. I was at a lung association event this morning, really early after working late last night, so I had to take a little nap. I've got my forecast buddy right there. Hey, Cookie. Hey, baby. She's not interested. Anyway, wanted to take a look at some of the model data out there regarding the system in the Caribbean. It's starting to look a little interesting. You know, still low level of concern, but could we get something out of this system later on this week? Yeah, we could. I think the way the model data is trending, we certainly could be headed in that direction. So, a couple of things to watch here. First, on the satellite picture, broad area of low pressure down in the southwestern Caribbean. So, it's this large area down here that the National Hurricane Center is watching carefully. They're thinking 70 to 80% chance that this is going to develop. In fact, you take a look at the Hurricane Center forecast. By the way, subtropical storm Patty formed today. So this is not going to be Patty. This is going to be Rafael, which, by the way, is my middle name. That's not a good thing, and maybe not a good omen. But maybe this will be the end of the season. 70% chance of formation here in the next 48 hours. 80% in the next 7 days. Model data really hasn't changed a heck of a whole lot with this system. It is starting to look interesting for us. So I'm going to take you through the models one by one. This right here is going to be the GFS that we'll start with. This is the one that's been most aggressive with the system the whole time. It's been talking about a stronger storm. It's, been developing it faster. So we'll kind of see how things develop in the next 24 hours and see if the GFS is right. Because you go from today, this is Sunday's forecast, all the way through. So this is the end of Sunday. Still a broad area of low pressure down in the southern Gulf, in the southern Caribbean. Let me, in fact, shift this map a little bit so you can see better. There you go. So we'll start off. This is Sunday, broad area of low pressure. By Monday, this thing develops what looks to be a depression or a tropical storm near Jamaica. So what you're seeing here on the satellite or on the model picture, this right here, that's the area of low pressure. You see the rings, the black rings, one inside of another. Those are pressure lines. So that indicates a storm system. And the GFS basically takes this and moves it towards Jamaica. But remember, as a tropical storm, probably, or a tropical depression, probably a tropical storm, the way this is looking. Remember, there's a large area of high pressure to the north of here. Let me go back to that map. So it's right there. This is Tuesday morning. Uh, it's these pressure lines to the north. So if you kind of look at the map here, it's these lines here. This is an area of high pressure that is stacked north of the system, and it's basically preventing it from going north. So let's just say this is Rafael. It's going to have to go like this to get out of and around the area of high pressure to its north, and that's what the GFS does. It brings it up across Jamaica, probably a flood threat for them. Honestly, if you're cruising in this area, this looks like to be a very small storm, at least according to the GFS. Takes it maybe to a Cat 1 or Cat 2 hurricane. That's a pressure of 974. So now you were within that category 2 intensity. But then, of course, it runs into Cuba. So what ends up happening is that the system weakens. So this is Wednesday morning, 983, minimal central pressure. It's just south of Florida. You're thinking, wow, this thing is headed right for us. But look what's happening here. It's actually moving west-northwest. Crosses Cuba, maybe reemerges out over the southern Gulf somewhere near Havana. Now, if that would be the case, if this model is correct, then the Keys are going to start to get some tropical storm conditions probably, and we probably would have some kind of watches issued for the Keys on Monday. Then it kind of reemerges into the Gulf of Mexico. But if you remember, uh, the Gulf situation is not that simple. I'm going to set up one more map here for you guys before we go back to the view. And this is really great from the University of Miami. Brian McNulty is a meteorologist down there, and they do really some cool stuff. And one of the things that he looked at is the heat content map. This is a heat content map of the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. Notice in the Caribbean, this is all red, white, purple, pink, high heat content, high fuel. The water is deep and warm. The Gulf of Mexico is not in the same state, and that is because it is November. The Gulf of Mexico heat content is significantly lower. It's about a third to a half of what it is down in the Caribbean. So this system is just not going to have the heat, the fuel available for it as it goes into the Gulf of Mexico. So as you look at this forecast, and here we are, this is a Wednesday evening. This system now, that little L with the circles around it, just south of the Keys and the dry Tortugas. Rain is spreading into South Florida, right? But no actual like hurricane or tropical storm conditions. This could be a Cat 1 maybe, or a strong tropical storm at this point. Then as you go into that pressure 991, Thursday and Thursday morning, the pressure holds steady. Thursday night, it goes to the west northwest. And then on Friday, the pressure actually starts to rise or hold near the 990s. Uh, Strong upper level shear, lower heat content. There's a frontal system, and this is the other thing. The GFS is picking up on a frontal system that's going to be coming down here from the Mississippi River Valley. It's right there. This frontal system is going to pick this system up, at least according to the GFS, and then move it out to the north and northeast so that eventually it just sort of gets absorbed by the front. And I mean, we could see a tropical storm, maybe a Cat 1 hurricane approaching the northern Gulf Coast or the Florida Panhandle, at least according to the GFS, as we go into, well, this would be Saturday or Sunday. So that's the GFS forecast. Let me show you the European. Again, this is just one run, by the way, of the models. I'm going to show you the ensembles, the multiple runs, to give you the idea of how much error there could be to all of these. In fact, let's look at that. Since we just looked at the GFS single run, this is the ensemble. So ensembles are basically multiple runs of the same model. You tweak something, the pressure, the humidity, the speed of a front, the intensity of the low pressure at its initial condition, and then you run the model and see what happens, because we don't know all the information. You guys often wonder, why don't we know? Well, just think about this. 75% of the Earth's surface is covered by water. We have no idea what's going on out there. We're estimating temperatures, we're estimating pressure. The fact that we can forecast the weather as well as we can by just knowing what the weather is doing accurately on roughly 30% of its surface is pretty incredible, or 25% of its surface. It's pretty amazing, because we really have no accurate readings of what's happening in the southwestern Caribbean until you fly a plane down there. But the plane only takes samples at specific points. It doesn't know the temperature or the wind speeds all around the storm. It really is amazing. So that's why we run these model tweaks. And what you're seeing here from the GFS is possible locations of this low pressure and its intensity. This is Thursday morning. And notice they go all the way from the west coast of Florida to the central Gulf of Mexico. Now, I know it may be hard to see on your screen, but I want you to focus on the numbers too. The numbers are what the GFS thinks the minimal central pressure could be. And the lowest number I see is 975. 975 if it's down here. Anything up here farther north, remember, cooler waters, less heat content, the numbers are lower. The numbers are 994, 984, 1004 millibars. So we're looking at a tropical storm to maybe a Cat 1 hurricane at the most, but most likely a strong tropical storm uh, in this GFS scenario. Anywhere from the west coast of Florida to the central Gulf. So is it possible that this thing could still go close to the west coast of Florida? It could. Now, on this track, and you notice all the ensembles move the lows into the central Gulf, and then there's fewer of them and they become scattered. That's because some of them fizzle the storm completely. What's happening here is this storm would be moving like this. Okay, that's important. Uh, a storm that's moving like this is also moving water in that direction, okay, on the north side of the track. This is not, and this is important, this is not Helene and Milton, which did this, and then they moved the water towards the coast, okay? This is moving the water in the opposite direction. So you would not be looking at some kind of major surge along the West Florida coast if it came up like this, okay? Now, if it comes up like that, then there could be some kind of water issues, obviously. Even with a tropical storm, we'd have to watch that very, very carefully. So that's the GFS. Let's go back now to the models here. Look at, I'm gonna give you two versions of the Euro here. The regular Euro run, which came out this morning, which is honestly relatively similar. And then we're going to look at the Euro AI, which is the new model that we're just testing for the first time. I mean, it was very accurate with Milton. Is it going to be very accurate with Rafael? Who knows? I mean, just because it's super accurate with one storm doesn't mean it's going to be super accurate with the next. So here's the European. I am not able to pause this like I did with the GFS to draw on it because of the way this website is formatted. But basically, this is now Monday, weak area of low pressure. If you kind of see where that red and yellow blob is on the model, that's where that low is. It's got one circle, which means probably a pressure of 1,004 millibars, which honestly is probably a tropical depression, maybe a minimal tropical storm approaching Jamaica. Uh, kind of holds it that way, then moves it south of the Cuban coast, gets a little stronger. So now we've got a tropical storm over western Cuba here. This is Wednesday evening. Very similar track. So here's the GFS, here's the Euro. I'm skipping between the two models. You see that? I mean, they're basically in the same position. And isn't that interesting that the models have finally kind of they've come together. I mean, this is through Thursday, I would say that this is now becoming a decent forecast. So it looks like we are going to see that tropical system passing just south of us. Now, the extent of the rain, I think, is still in question. The GFS definitely has rain up into southwest Florida out ahead of this. The European does not. So there's still a couple of things maybe that differ. Between the two, but this is decent. So let's advance the Euro. The Euro Thursday afternoon, Thursday night, still similar to the GFS. Intensity difference, 10 millibar difference in the pressure. The GFS has been much more aggressive all season, and honestly, it's been right with that. So let's just say that the European is probably off on the intensity. And then it just takes it west, south, west, northwest. Now, here's the difference between the two. You see here, as I skip between the models Friday evening, they're farther apart. Now we go into Saturday morning, they're much farther apart. Why? The GFS believes that this system is going to get pulled north by that front that's moving through Texas. The European does not. The European has that front kind of washing out before or weakening. It doesn't have as strong of a front approaching the northern Gulf Coast. So the system just kind of drifts west into the western Gulf towards South Texas and just sort of fizzles. Maybe brings some rain to Texas. So that's the difference between the two is whereas the GFS brings it up into the Panhandle or Alabama or Mississippi, the European uh, just keeps it going west northwest and just has it missing that front. So here's the European AI. This is an interesting model. Based on AI, so it's using a little bit of pattern recognition. Past storms are kind of getting mixed into this as well. So here's what it's showing: a broad area of low pressure. I think the intensity on this is probably off, just like the European. The difference between this and the regular European, not much. Through Tuesday, has it moving south of Cuba basically. You can look at the three models. The GFS is a little farther north, which is interesting because it's also stronger when it's farther north. It's closer to land. So the European AI takes it basically over western Cuba. So it's the farthest west in its passage through Cuba. But then look what it does after that. This is Wednesday. This is Thursday morning. This is the regular Euro. You notice there's some differences here. Regular Euro AI, regular AI. And look what the AI does. It takes it up toward the Big Bend. Hmm. Uh, that is an interesting track. Now, part of, and I think this is important to remember, part of the AI portion of this and the way AI works, remember, AI is not real intelligence. It's looking for past patterns. It's looking at the position of the storm and where it is, and it is weighing what other storms in that position have done in the past. Okay. Um, so it may not be putting as much weight on the actual weather setup around this system, but it is taking it up towards the Florida Big Bend. This is a Helene track basically once it gets up there. Um, Now, the pressure there is at 999, 998. Tropical storm, maybe a Cat 1 hurricane, probably a tropical storm, 60 mile, 60, 70 mile an hour tropical storm at the most. Now, this kind of track, obviously, okay, concern, obviously more concern because with a system that's doing this. We've all been there before. That's what the water does. The water starts sloshing towards the western side of Florida. So definitely not something that we would want to see here if that were to be the case. We do not want this kind of a track here. That's the Euro AI. It's my first season really looking at it. I don't know what to tell you more about this other than showing that's what it's doing. Could that happen? Yeah, I guess. It's reacting very early to that front. It does have the front there on the Texas coast. You guys see it here? This is the front back here. That's the front. I'm kind of scribbling red on it. Um, has the storm turning really early up towards the Big Bend? Possible. Again, concern level still low. Now it was probably a 1 2 days ago. Now it's maybe a 3. When we get to a 4 or 5, I think the concern level would go up, especially let's say if this holds through tomorrow. I may have to increase that concern level to a 4 out of 10 instead of a 3 out of 10. But generally, we're looking at this thing, um, at least let's say we're confident that, and this is true, all the models have basically the system somewhere near Western Cuba on Wednesday night. And the big question now is, what does it do after that? We've got three options. We've got the Big Bend, North Central Gulf Coast, or Western Gulf. So really anywhere in the Gulf after that. But this is a big step forward, right? I mean, before we didn't really have an idea of what this thing was going to do at all. I think there is a little bit more agreement and a little bit more consensus among the models. These are the European ensembles. You run the European. I like the way this is output because you see actual spaghetti tracks. And you see the way you kind of read these is you look, where do most of them go? Yes, some of them do go towards the west coast of Florida. Where did the majority of them go? You know, it's probably something like this. And then the question is, does it turn here? Right? Does it turn? Let's try that again. Does it turn here? Does it turn up here? Or does it turn and just continue west? It seems like from the ensembles, there's fewer of them going west, and that's interesting. The single run from the European that just came out this morning, the one model forecast, it has it going towards West Texas. None of the ensembles do. They all have it turning, so it's Louisiana basically to the Big Bend is the potential area of impact here of what likely would be a tropical storm or maybe just possibly a category 1 hurricane, maybe at the worst. Though again, remember what we talked about here. The farther north you go into the Gulf of Mexico, the cooler the water temperatures get. And actually, I'm going to load one more. Um, let's look at the actual sea surface temperature in the Gulf of Mexico. Well, it doesn't have any data. I'll show you what it pulled up. That's a blank map, so there's no data on this one. Let's see if I can surface temp. If I can Google something really quick here from NOAA and see if they can if it can pull up something relatively accurate or at least. All right, well, possibly. Let me just find the right Gulf of Mexico. All right, good enough. But it actually shows you the same thing. Okay, so these are the current sea surface temperatures. Let me do one more thing here. 80 degrees is 26.6 degrees Celsius. So we are looking, this is in Celsius. We're looking for water temperatures that are 26.6 degrees. So 26.6 is about, it's this green here somewhere. All right. So anything that's yellow and orange is warm enough to support a tropical system. You start getting into the lighter greens, greenish, bluish color. You start getting into waters that are too cool. And in fact, look at the coast of Florida and areas right near the coast. The water is significantly below 80 degrees. So as the storm is heading north, it would be coming over that cold water. So unlike Helene and Milton, especially Helene, which really kept intensifying up until the point of landfall, this one probably would not do that, okay? It probably would actually begin to weaken. Now, it'd be very close to the coast if it did start to do that, but that is something that would probably happen with this. It's a different season. November is not August or September, right? I think it's very important to remember that. This is not August and September, right, Cookie? The life of a dog. So that's kind of the latest here. Still low level concern, but could we have a tropical system that we'd be dealing with late in the week? Yeah, we could. I think the model data is showing that level of concern here for wind and water would be low. Now, of course, you know, our threshold is different now after Helene and Milton. We just don't want to see any more, period. Um, if it's a strong tropical storm with the same areas that got flooded with Helene, flood with this, no. Okay, I think that's important to remember. If it's a category one hurricane with the same places that flooded with Helene, flood with this, no. They would not. This is going to be a system that's going to be holding its intensity or slowly weakening as it approaches a coast, versus a Helene, which is intensifying or staying strong and much stronger as it approaches the coast. A very different animal. Okay, a Cat 1 hurricane and a Cat 3 hurricane or Cat 4 hurricane, huge difference in the intensity. Also looks to be a much smaller system, and I think size here is also very important. Smaller systems move less water. Okay, so that would be another thing. The water rise would be much closer to the center of the track versus Helene, which really impacted the entire coast. So that's kind of the latest here. It's kind of went a lot longer than I thought it would, but I think it's important that we talk about this. Uh, I'll take another look at this tomorrow. Obviously, there's going to be another details video update for sure to keep you guys updated. If things remain the same, then obviously we'll have to kind of ramp up our updates and start looking at this a little bit more closely. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me for this forecast details Saturday edition. Hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Nothing to worry about until probably Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, depending on the track, if this even goes in our direction. So, plenty of time to watch this. Enjoy your weekend. Have fun out there. And I'll see you guys as we head into tomorrow. Take care.